Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Divorce Unplugged podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nicole Cox. You may recognize me as the family law liaison on socials. And I have a co-host.
Hey everybody, Keegan Burke. You may recognize me as Divorceology on socials. My disclaimer is not a lawyer, not lawyering, not legal advice. Nothing we do is legal advice on here. It's an open conversation. So
very good, Keegan. And then my disclaimer is I'm an attorney. I am licensed. I am not your attorney, and we are not giving legal advice today.
Great. So let's get right into it. So we recently had a guest on. And I think it is a really good opportunity for us to take a pause and open the conversation around the value of coaching for men and women, but the things that men and women need to consider more specifically as it relates to divorce, custody, separation, and all things that we talk about from a family court, family law perspective, because it really did open our eyes both to the facts of his situation, gaps in the knowledge that we have today. It opens additional questions that we asked him, but also that we just generally have. But more importantly, I think it's an opportunity for us to dig into why coaches are so valuable to people going through this process. So I guess let's get right to kind of that topic. And so I want to sort of point out a couple things, right? Every divorce, separation, and custody battle is ugly. It tends to be. Even the stories that you hear where, oh, it's great and we're getting along, there's always an ugliness factor, or at some point they have to navigate certain challenges. But let's talk about the folks that are challenging from the jump, right? We're not talking to the folks that have the perfect separation and they co-parent perfectly and all the things that you all hope for. We all hope for. But let me preface it this way. In our conversation with Kevork, I took a moment before we got him on and I said, hey, here are the general ground rules, the things that we want you to recognize, the things that we think are important generally, the things that are basically off limits, what you can do or can't do, what you should do or shouldn't do. And outside of whether or not he was or is right or wrong, what jumped out at me was everything that we provided for guidance, the opposite took place. And let me give you a couple really quick examples. First, language. You can't be swearing on a forum like this or in a forum like this. And arguably, you shouldn't be swearing anyway. It's never a good look. That's one. Two, we don't need names. We don't want names. They're not necessarily relevant. We're not trying to pitch or promote or take away or undercut anybody that we're dealing with, right? We don't share names of our situations or the people that we're dealing with. Those are two really basic instructions. I think they're fundamental for most folks. And yet, I found us in 2 hours struggling to have him follow those basic rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. There was times when I was a little bit concerned about the names. I get concerned when we start using judges' names in particular, or any other professionals' names for that matter.
Yeah, and so I think there are a couple things that I want to kind of get to as it relates to this from a coaching perspective. And it really jumps out at me that it's a very difficult thing to experience when it's you experiencing it, right? You have an emotional attachment. And so a lawyer isn't going to be able to give you hands-on intraday guidance. They're not going to help you manage those emotions, right? A lawyer is going to help put your case on, but not going to do the groundwork that you need to get your case forward, right? With that being said, if you think about emotions and the way you handle it, it's even harder if you don't know what direction you're going. So a coach is going to give you the roadmap, right? Like when you're coaching, Nicole, what are some of the things that you prioritize, at least as the onset, right? What are the things that you have people think about as primary areas for them to focus on?
Exactly. So I start out with a strategy plan, right? That's what I call it. And then I look into, well, how is my client being perceived? How is my client being perceived by opposing counsel? How is my client being perceived, most importantly, by a judge? And then I look at where are some of the areas that I can clean up that perception if it isn't absolutely going in my client's direction. So those are the things, and I set ground rules for them as well. And it goes into as deep as you are not allowed to pick up the phone and send an email after this hour, or please don't ever send a text message and attach every single person's attorney. And I mean, I have so many examples of where people just don't listen to my coaching, and it can go wrong very quickly.
Yeah, not only does it go wrong in that category, right? It goes expensive, right? And
Right.
I call it perception is reality in family court systems
It's
because it's not just, I'm not saying that you are right or wrong. And we're certainly not advocating for manipulating how you're perceived, but it is something that you need to manage, right?
right.
Because you are under the microscope. Every action, every move is going to be judged, analyzed, evaluated, and for men, right? My analogy is we as men are big, bad bravado. We're tough. We can handle anything. We're going to power through it. We can get to the end, right? We can climb Mount Everest. Listen, the reality is most of us shoot ourselves in the foot and still think we can climb Mount Everest, and it just doesn't work. And so when you hear these tragic stories, when you have good dads losing custody, or, and let's just say it, like good dads, good moms, whatever, if you have people that are mismanaging their perception, then they're not going to win in family court. And win being, again, a subjective term, right?
Right. When is maybe some few things that they want, to, yeah, in their advantage. But I hear what you're saying, and I will say this, and I know that it sounds maybe coming from a female coach a little bit biased, but I can tell you that my male clients are definitely the most difficult. They don't listen, and like you said, they think they can just keep messing up like every single day, send really inappropriate messages to opposing counsel when you can't do that. You've been told not to. Inappropriate messages to the co-parent, whatever it may be. And they think it's just no big deal and they won't listen. And you know what? I honestly think there are some times, and I hate to say this, when people are just uncoachable. I mean, or maybe a coach needs to step in before the presumption or before they appear to be just completely unable to regulate themselves.
Yeah, and I think too that oftentimes the uncoachability is related to a lack of understanding that family court isn't the reality that we all live every day, right? It's what we think and what is relevant and what is important to a judge or to a professional in your case is different than what's important to you. And so lots of these guys and women for that matter get caught up in these moments where they're hyper fixated on a particular fact or a detail and or just being right. Like just basic lies, right? Throw men off their game. They cannot comprehend that somebody's lying, and they respond poorly. I think that men generally have a. I think we're deficient in the emotional category, right? So like we can't build up that emotional management piece that a woman can.
Okay, you guys are missing a little bit of a piece. Yes, a chip,
Yeah.
an empathy chip.
But
Okay.
but that's exactly why I say to men all the time, you have to recognize where you're strong, where you're weak, what are the things that you need to kind of plug the holes in the boat, where are the landmines that you don't want to step on as part of the
Mhm.
process. But I think ultimately too, people don't recognize that this process is not fast. It is a very long, arduous journey. It's one where you're going to have to refill the tank. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to take a different path. You're going to have to do things that you didn't expect to. And by the way, if you have an attorney, they're not going to tell you these things because they're just going to send you a new retainer request. They're going to use up the money. And by the way, that's not a knock on an attorney. It's a reality, right?
Well, and I have something to say about the attorneys as well. Exactly. They aren't there like a coach is 24/7. They're not going to pick up the phone for you. They're not going to tell you not to send that email or that text. And they're not going to tell you that every time you argue over small details like you just pointed out, Keegan, it just it just brings the billable hours up more, okay? So, I mean, people get stuck in details like diapers for example. It's if you keep going back and forth about who's going to pay for the diapers for the daycare, I mean, you'll be in court forever. These are small, tiny details that no judge even cares about or wants to hear. And your attorney certainly is not going to take the time to pick up the phone about these small issues or little bumps and bruises that the kiddos get during somebody else's parenting time, things like that. That's why you definitely need a coach. And to speaking to that, I also feel like sometimes attorneys are, what do I want to say, threatened by coaches, by what we do, and we just want to work on a team with them
Yeah.
because it takes a village in this situation to help your client. So having an attorney and a coach on board, maybe even a therapist, those are people that are key in helping a client win a case. So there's no reason why an attorney should ever feel threatened by a
Yeah,
coach.
and the attorneys I work with actually, it's funny because I've had a handful of conversations, and a number of them are like, "You are exactly what I need." It's like you're the bridge between, civilian life and war life, right? Like,
Right.
because they are totally
Yes.
different experiences, right? And
Mhm.
so he or she can't be taking or is going to burn. I mean, listen, attorneys bill on a 15-minute margin, right? So if they have to do one sentence, it's going to hit you for 15 minutes. What's the average cost of an attorney? 500 an hour. So
Right.
you're going to get hit for 150 bucks just to get your attorney to think about you and
Right.
write one message. So you want them to be focused only on the things that what you're spending your money and your time and your energy on
Right.
are going to be valuable to you.
The
Um,
filings, the
yeah,
pleadings, those types of things, that's what the attorney is there to do,
yeah,
not to coach
yeah. The
and
other
pick
thing
up the phone every 5 minutes.
Yeah, the other thing too that I feel like coaches bring to the table is y- no attorney, no coach, no family member can do the work and understand the case through the lens of the client of the person, right? So those that just get the representation or maybe they have the money to do that, and especially if they don't have the money to do that, who don't get involved, don't get familiar with their local court rules or the state laws, or don't start thinking about what do they have to do to protect themselves in their case or protect their interests, they're
Mhm.
failing, right? Because we
Right.
all can't do it for you. You have to get engaged. You have to be a participant. You just want to do it in a meaningful way. And an attorney is your most expensive path and probably your least productive because listen, if I'm an attorney and I'm billing at 500 an hour and I get a data dump of evidence, right? We say collect the evidence, document. Doesn't mean that all evidence is treated equally, right?
Mhm.
You want somebody to say, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is pointless, or
Right.
assemble it in a way that you take the totality of it. And listen,
Totality of the circumstances,
yeah.
yes.
And
Well,
so
but
go ahead.
well, not to interrupt you, sorry about that, but, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you feel like anybody knows your client's case and your client's feelings about their case better than you as a coach?
No. And here's the other thing on that. Even with the client, right? It's all
Mhm.
when I argue with a client, it's not that I'm arguing, "Hey, client, you are wrong," right? It's you. Oftentimes, they're right from their perspective. The fact is right, but in family court, oftentimes there is not just one right. And so back to perception is reality. It's if you're only focused on your right and not considering the other side's right, or not considering that maybe there's a bigger right over here because you're so emotionally attached, then
Mhm.
you're again going to fail. And also why a coach is there, right? Think about it, it's sports. A coach is always giving you constructive criticism, always
Yes.
telling you you need to work harder, do better, train
Yeah.
faster, eat more, all the things. It's it's not a confrontational relationship, it's a supportive one. But if you hear it all the time in sports, hey, he's uncoachable, or they don't take good criticism, or they don't follow instructions, those are the people that don't make it to the pros. Same thing in our world. If
I
you don't
love
take
that. I
coach's
love that
guidance,
analogy.
you're going to
Yes.
lose. You're never
Yeah.
going to get what you want.
No,
So,
it's true. 100%. And this is a game. I mean, it really is.
unfortunately it is. Unfortunately, it's a really tough situation, and unfortunately, people think they can do it on their own, think that they've got the coverage that they need, ignore how important, I call it a strategery or a strategist, or, even down to, okay, I don't necessarily want to be making your emotional decisions for you, right? But I think you should probably determine whether or not you have the stamina to fight for this, right? I actually, that's one of the first things that I cover is, what is your end goal? And then what is it going to take to get there, right? And that's
Yeah.
economics, that's emotions, that's work life balance, that's kid
Mhm.
management balance, that's survival post divorce. What is your life after this going to look like? How are you
Mhm.
going to get there? And so it's really one of those things that goes back to some of the other topics we talk about. Where can you mediate or agree or negotiate on topics? Is to your point, is fighting over diapers or haircuts or clothes worth
Right.
anybody's time? No.
No, it is not worth anyone's time, and that's where I have to get in with my coaching and say, "Okay, look, again, perception. What do you think this is going to look like to the judge? Do you think we're now gonna start looking like we're just mutually combative? Because the more emails that go back and forth about swim lessons, haircuts, and diapers, etc., is just going to start to make you look nitpicky, and then your whole argument gets lost in all these emails. And by the way, guys, I just want to point this out. I am so sick of seeing my clients and everybody using Chat GPT to send one basic email to their co-parent. I mean, it is like so in detail. It's obvious you're using Chat GPT. Just use your regular voice. It's so much better and it's so much more sincere.
Yeah, I actually talk about it on my page, and it's, less is more, less is more,
Yes.
less is more, and every single time. Now, I recognize that there are scenarios where maybe it's super complex and you're going to have to kind of lay out a longer message, or there are multiple topics that you're trying to cover. But generally, less is more. And let me tell you, anybody who knows AI knows that there are some very clear telltale signs that it's an AI produced message, and you don't even need to run it through a filter to determine that. So,
Right.
AI is helpful in some capacities, but write yourself a message. And by the way, I'll say this too: don't let friends and family write your messages for you either. Right? Like,
No.
they have their own motivations, their own perceptions. Maybe they've got their own injury because your relationship fell off, and maybe they have a different relationship with your children that they had it before. There are so many additional elements that come into play if you don't just do it yourself. And that's what I was saying. You need to take ownership.
There are some things that I just have my clients do and say, and I like very clear, concise, two-sentence emails. I think is fine. I think if you say, "I'm sorry, sorry you feel that way, but here's what I'm thinking, and this is," and that's it. We don't need Chat GPT to write a full paged email because guess what? The judge is not going to read that email.
Correct. Now, here's the thing. Even though the judge is likely or unlikely to read that email, you need to write it assuming he or she will, because
Right.
that's the message that he
Yes.
or she reads.
Yeah, exactly. Everything that you put in writing, you have to actually assume that a judge is going to look at it. Absolutely, for sure. And that's why I think when we talk about clear and concise, don't give a lot of words out that can be scrutinized. Just make it quick and easy and just respectful.
Yeah, and I think too the other part of this is around expectations. And I said it, it's a long journey. I love analogies. I'm just I always use them, but you're going to people go in thinking that it's a black and white win lose, and it never is. And I've said it on other episodes of ours where a judge feels like they've done their job if both parties leave unhappy. And in that vein, you're going to lose a couple battles. If the
Mhm.
ultimate thing is a war, right, and you're trying to win the war, you're going to take a couple
Yeah.
casualties along the way. And oftentimes, this is a little secret that I have kind of sort of accumulated over whatever dozen years in the process. I find that the battles are tend to go away from you or in the other side's direction, only so that the other side continues to misbehave to the extent that the judge can actually go in the other direction. Listen, Joe or Susie, you had all these chances to do the right thing and you didn't. And so now here's the ruling.
Exactly, and you just nailed it on the head, which is I usually use the term, the judge will give you enough rope to hang yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely they will, for sure.
Yeah.
And it feels unfair at first because you probably lost a few motions, they weren't granted, and you can't understand why, and then all of a sudden, boom, you see exactly why they weren't granted because the judge was just waiting for the other side to violate a court order or show patterns and show their true colors.
Yeah, exactly right. So long game, right? Focus on where you're strong, where you're weak. Try to firm up the places where you've got a blind spot. And all of these things, I think, are, in my opinion, impossible to do alone. And I will say this too: having a coach does not mean that you will win. Having a coach is not the answer to everything. But I believe that if you don't have a coach, your journey is going to be harder, it's going to be longer, and it's going to be less likely that you do win. If anything, you're making everything worse if you aren't leveraging a strategy and a coach to ground you in the things that are most important to move your case forward, but also give you the opportunity to live beyond your divorce.
I 100% agree with that. Here's another thing that we didn't touch on, but we can quickly, is a coach can actually help you put your legal team together. So I do
Mm,
that a lot for my clients. I tell them what questions to ask when they're interviewing an attorney, and then they know what they're looking for moving forward, and we put a team together that seems to work well. So that's another
yes.
nice service that a coach offers is putting your legal team together for you and
$100%.
helping you
100%.
to find an attorney that fits best for your needs.
Yes, and here's why that is also important. One, it's actually something I talk about too all the time.
Mhm.
It is you want the right attorney for the right situation, right? Family law is so broad, the topics are so diverse, the courtrooms are so different, the way judges, opine, the geography that you're in. I mean,
Mhm.
Orange County to San Diego County to LA County are completely different universes, right? You don't
Very.
like picking your attorney is as important as anything that you do because you don't want to be hopping attorneys as you go backwards, right? Because now it's just you're blaming everybody else. Whether that's true or not, that's the perception, back to
Mhm.
perception, right? So, yes, picking the right attorney, having the right attorney who's got the right experience for the situation that's before you. Making sure too, by the way, attorneys tend to be a little bit more conscious about cost when you've got a professional involved because they're not just going to be able to bill you for days on things that should take an hour and they put in 2 or 3 or maybe you're doing a heavy, burden portion of the lift where they
Right.
can't bill you for that wasted time.
Exactly.
So,
No, I agree with that. I've found attorneys that work with special needs for certain cases, that work, with domestic violence, specifically with high conflict, those types of things. And also there's personalities.
yeah.
You're looking at your client's personality and you know what some of the attorney's personalities are, and sometimes it's just not a good fit, or sometimes it's a great fit.
Yeah, even down to a man versus a woman attorney.
Mhm.
And I go like some people are very hard and fast when it has to be X or Y, and I'm like, it isn't that. A man should have a woman attorney in certain situations, and he should have a man attorney in some situations. It really does depend, and I think it's impossible for a civilian to make that call on their own because through their lens, it's hey, you're a family law attorney, you deal with my family law case. It's
Exactly.
much more sophisticated than that.
Right.
So
Agreed.
so in wrapping, right? I think
Mhm.
what Kavork exposed is that there is a lot still unknown about his situation, but there's also a clear signal that having a coach is imperative. It's why we do what we do. It's why we talk about the things we talk about. And if you haven't sought a coach or aren't looking at your strategy, where you're strong, where you're weak, and how you're going to move your case forward, I think that you're in for a long, hard battle. And we wish the best to you, but obviously feel free to reach out. And that's why we get so many questions too. So keep them coming.
Yes, we love the questions. Keep them coming. Definitely look into getting some coaching. Don't go into this alone and, unsupported. So there's a lot of support that a coach can offer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, until next
Okay.
time,
Until next time,
thanks everybody.
see you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Like and subscribe.
Do all the things.